Palazzolo, today discussing how we can fix Solomon Thomas, San Francisco 49ers. He was a first-round pick last year, 2017, and played edge last year, Sam. He played on the edge, but in college played more on the interior. I think we all projected him as an edge, but there was a caveat there. There's an ideal way to use Solomon Thomas that maybe wasn't tapped into last year.
Yeah, so he is a classic tweener player, which the NFL has always had a problem with. Where do you put these guys? There's less of an issue now when you're talking about safety, corner. Those tweeners have actually become a positive thing now. They've become matchup weapons on defense. On the defensive line, though, it's still an issue. If you have a tweener up front, a guy who's he's the size, somewhere between an interior defensive lineman and an edge rusher, teams still don't quite know how to deploy those guys. And that's really what Solomon Thomas is. He's 6'3", he was 273 at the scouting combine a year ago. That's not quite big enough to be inside every down. So now you're looking at projecting him outside where he didn't really play in college. If you look at his snaps in college, 91% of those snaps by a lineman were interior defensive, 9% were as a true edge defender. So the 49ers essentially reversed that. It was 71% on the edge last season, 29% as an interior player. Almost no true interior snaps of any description. Everything was on or outside of the offensive tackle. And we saw that that's not what he does. He really is a true interior player. And I think the path to success for him is to accept that he's going to be an undersized guy. You may not want him out there on the 300 base snaps that you're going to play in the season, but for the 700 snaps where you're going to be in sub packages, put him out there as a three-technique interior player and let him rush the passer from the inside.
We mentioned this in our draft guide coming out. I mean, this was our analysis that he was similar to a Michael Bennett who played in a similar scheme, the same thing that the 49ers are running, where he's a base defensive end on early downs. That's still where you want him, right? Base downs, defensive end, taking on tight ends, taking on tackles in the run game, right? That's where you would want him?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather him out. I would rather on base downs. I think you put him at defensive end rather than inside. But I mean, his NFL future may actually be as just a sub-package player, which isn't a bad thing. Like I say, sub-packages are now 700 snaps in a season.
Right.
It's the new base. It's what you're playing most of the time. If that's all he is for you, and you maybe rotate him in every now and again on base downs, whether it's at edge or inside, I don't think that's a bad thing for his production.
He was such a fascinating college player because he was playing not just on the interior, but some true nose tackle snaps at Stanford, taking on centers and guards, shedding them like a 300-pounder, shedding them, making plays. He would make plays multiple gaps away in the run game, again, which you just don't see. So coming out with that outstanding run grade, we didn't have any issues with him as a run defender at the next level, especially if they were moving him to the edge. We did have concerns with him rushing the passer off the edge, and that certainly manifest itself in his rookie season. He's just not efficient enough as a pure edge rusher getting after the quarterback.
And you can see all those numbers right now if you go to PFF Premium, all part of your PFF Elite or Edge subscription, or no, just Elite. Just part of your Elite subscription.
Get the good package.
Get the good package for PFF Premium stats. You look at that now, Solomon Thomas rushed the passer last season 401 snaps. That's a lot of pass rushing snaps, but generated just 3 sacks, 9 hits, 18 total hurries. That is an extremely low amount. Basically, among the worst edge defenders in terms of pass rushing snaps per pressure, very low rate of production. But even in limited snaps, you could see if you broke down his season by interior versus edge alignment, he was much more productive inside. I think that's where he needs to be if you're going to turn him into this viable next level player. And his grading in college was fantastic. We had him at a 92.7 overall grade, only 7 interior defenders, only 7 interior defenders have had a higher grade than that at any single season in their career since we've been doing PFF grading. That dropped all the way to 53.2 at the next level. You need to find some other solution.
Yeah, so what's the answer here, though? Because when you look at this 49ers roster, and of course they used 3 straight first-round picks on defensive linemen. Now, they were slightly different styles. Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner, both big, long players that were drafted to their old 3-4 scheme. Solomon Thomas drafted, maybe a better fit. Maybe they play the same position in theory. That's what we want, right? But has to play on the edge because you have Buckner, you have Armstead, you have a guy like Sheldon Day rushing from the interior, you have a guy like Ronald Blair potentially rushing from the interior. they don't have any true edge rushers other than maybe Eli Harold over there. They don't have the body type that you need to get after the quarterback on the edge. Is Solomon Thomas going to have to do it again, and they just hope that he improves this year because there's no path to putting him on the interior?
That's the big worry. I mean, I think you have to look at that season and come to the understanding that this is not what he does well. This is not how he succeeds, or he's in his best position to succeed at the next level. But they didn't really change a whole lot between last offseason and this season to address that problem. It wasn't a good offseason to need an edge rusher. The free agent class was pretty barren. There wasn't an awful lot there when the franchise tags got deployed. It wasn't a good draft for edge rushers either. The 49ers did have opportunities. They passed on a guy like Harold Landry that could potentially have rectified that spot, but they really didn't do anything to address their edge rusher. They drafted Kentavious Street later on in the draft. Even he is a guy who is similar in that kind of tweener mold, maybe a guy better off kicking inside to rush from the inside. There's no obvious edge rushing star there that's going to be the primary source of pass rush. So one of those guys that are all the same player, they're all the same position, Solomon Thomas, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Sheldon Day, somebody is going to have to get deployed out wide and have to play as a true defensive end, rushing the passer. For Solomon Thomas' sake, I hope it's not him because he's shown year one that he's not capable of doing that.
Out of that group, though, rushing the passer, DeForest Buckner, we already know he's a stud, graded over 90 last year. He's backed up his college grading, projecting to the NFL so far. But I think it's Buckner and Thomas. I mean, I think they're the two best interior rushers. Throw Sheldon Day in that mix as a disruptor. If they rotate those three guys in their nickel and dime packages, getting after the quarterback, that is probably the ideal mix. But we do bring up that point. Who is coming off the edge? I think the Niners have to get creative. But for Solomon Thomas' sake, if we're trying to maximize him, this was the point of your whole article this week, Sam, was how do we save his career? Let him rush against guards.
We need to move him inside. And the other thing about that is the college grading was fantastic against the run. We saw him playing true nose tackle all around the inside. We don't know that being 273 pounds is going to be a problem. It's lower than you expect from an interior rusher. Even guys like Aaron Donald, Geno Atkins, those guys are 280 plus. There's at least 10 pounds of difference between Solomon Thomas and the lower end of what you expect to be successful at that position. That's not to say he can't do that. He may be the exception to the rule and a guy that can survive inside of 273 pounds and still be a productive player on all three downs.
Yeah, the weight might not be a factor because his block awareness, his hand usage, his ability to shed blocks, all of that is outstanding. I think he could handle, at least a few run snaps on the interior if he needs to. So there you have it. Sam has solved the Solomon Thomas issue. We're going to make him a productive top 10 pick next year. Just let him rush on the interior against guards. It's been our PFF off-season update, powered by PFF Edge and Elite.